Welcome back to the Smart Driving Cars podcast. Thank you for tuning in once again. This edition is made possible by CARTS, the Corporation for Automated Road Transportation Safety, a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to safe and high-quality mobility for all. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alan Kornhauser. Good morning, Alan.
Good morning, Fred.
And we are so happy to have joining us from General Motors, the Chief Engineer of Ultra Cruise, Jason Ditman. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Fred. Good morning. Hi, Alan.
Jason, so nice to have you and have somebody who's been in it for a while, right?
Yes, I've been involved in this automated driving space since 2018. I was the chief engineer for Super Cruise as we were launching on the CT6, and then that has evolved into the next generation of Super Cruise. Yeah,
so that was before that time, right? How long were you with Super Cruise? You're from early, right?
Well, no, I joined in the fall of 18 as we were launching the product into production. I was with the team for about a year and a half. Then I went back and did a stint as a propulsion chief. I have a long history in electrification also. And then I've been back working on Ultra Cruise now since 2020. So about 3 years now I've been focusing on Ultra Cruise.
So can we, to start, how was it doing that in COVID?
Well, we already had I'll call it a global team. When the team of people that were working on Ultra Cruise at the time, we had a group of engineers in Austin, Texas. We had a group of engineers in Toronto at our Canadian Technical Center, and we had a group of engineers in Israel at our tech center there. So we were already used to.
You were COVID already. You're right.
So what we had to figure out how to do is for the local team here in Michigan, who was used to seeing each other every day, that was really the adjustment. But I think for the global team, we were already used to doing everything over Teams meetings. It wasn't Teams at the time, but we were already used to.
Whichever version of this thing. Well, I guess that's really good in some sense. There was a big change. In other sense, there was little change. We at the university, of course, enormous change instead of being in the classroom. I mean, it was despicable. I mean, you can't think of a proper name for it, but sure, we can do education remotely and all that stuff, and you can go to the library and read books. You don't need to go to class. You get right down to it. But boy, it was a big thing for us. But anyway, good. Thank you. It is a big concern in a lot of places. When are people going to return to the office and so on? And I think about the folks who go to Wall Street, for example. Why do you go to Wall Street? You're on the computer, on the phone all day long anyway. I mean, what the heck? You're commuting to go. I mean, anyway, but that's a whole different thing.
I will say this. I think it is relevant here because we're really proud of this. I always like to call it the global village that works on Ultra Cruise. Yeah. So anytime there's an opportunity to talk about that, I'm very proud of it. We're really proud of how these teams all work together, being so disconnected, geographically.
And different perspectives and coming from it, probably from different places, which is bound. I mean, we are all about diversity here also. And, getting different inputs, different. Yes, go ahead. Good. Great.
And not to mention juggling time zones for those team meetings. Right? So that's challenging for some people, I'm sure. But you have some news to get to today, Jason. GM is unveiling its safe deployment approach to Ultra Cruise, which is designed to ultimately enable hands-free driving in 95% of all driving situations, you're saying. This is the next generation of advanced driver assistance. Take us a little deeper into this announcement, what it is you're coming out with.
Yeah, well, what we're trying to do with Ultra Cruise is we're trying to expand upon what we're really proud of, which is Super Cruise. So we're trying to take the elements of Super Cruise, which is our driver attention system and our alert system with our light bar that we communicate with the driver on what we need them to do. So we're using those two as kind of foundational elements, and then trying to expand the driving domain to a destination to destination feature. So think of it, you're in your car in the morning, and I have a 55-mile commute to the tech center. When I come to the tech center, I would put in the Warren campus as my destination, and I would hit go. And ultimately, by the time all is said and done, Ultra Cruise is capable of giving me, a nearly total hands-free driving experience from my house to the tech center campus. Now, there will be times when we'll need the driver to come back in to do a maneuver if it's a complex maneuver. But the goal is to try to give you that hands-free experience on your entire commute. And one of our strategies is when you go to this expanded domain, you've got more vehicles, more cars, you've got bicycles, you've got pedestrians. So we've set up a sensing suite that consists of a LiDAR on the car. Every car will have a LiDAR, multiple radars, both short and long range radars, and 7 cameras to, observe the scene and give us a picture of what's out there, and enables us to make the right decisions on when Ultra Cruise can take over and do the driving versus when we need the driver to come back in to do a few maneuvers.
And you're saying pretty much almost all the time this is available, but I understand things like traffic circles, or roundabouts as they're called.
Yes. So the 95% of all driving scenarios, there was a study done of sort of naturalistic driving maneuvers that people do on a daily basis. And the architecture that we've selected with our sensing and our compute enables us, based on that study, to do about 90% of the driving maneuvers on an average. So, let's say for my 55-mile commute, I won't see a roundabout until I get on the tech center campus. And when I get there, we have a way to bring the driver back in to get through that roundabout, and then the vehicle would automatically resume. There will also be some other maneuvers like unprotected intersections. So a vehicle trying to do unprotected left and right hand turns. If you've got that on your route plan, to start, we're going to ask the driver to confirm that the intersection is clear enough to do the maneuver. And then we'd ask them to press the accelerator pedal before the car makes that maneuver. Those maneuvers are very difficult, and we feel like we need to learn how to do that over time. And that's kind of foundational to our safe deployment strategy. We're only going to put features out there when we feel like they're ready to go and we can do it safely.
If I could get into a couple of questions that I have, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Couple comments I'd like to make. One is when you came out with Super Cruise, I think, we updated the shows or whatever. Impressed with two things. One is the eye tracker you put in there, and two, I just thought it was enormously elegant that you put the light bar on the steering wheel. Okay, I mean, I thought that was wonderful. Not that it matters what the heck I think, but why? Because it's very close to in your field of view. Okay, and you don't have to look all the way down on the dash, and really in the why not? There's nothing else there that's useful, and so on. So kudos to that, and I think those have been two of the fundamental values. Of course, I didn't like that it was just on the CT6, and I went in Cadillac dealers, and they didn't even know what the heck I was talking. That's a whole other thing. That's a business thing associated with it. Couple of questions with respect to the use of one. When you do your route from where you are to go to the tech center, does the route take into account the ability for Ultra Cruise to do its thing? In other words, as you pointed out very carefully, and I and I really do appreciate you pointing out, having these things make unprotected left turns in situations in which you have 2 lanes going this way and 2 lanes going this way with a thing in between, 3 lanes. I mean, they're like crazies out there with the competition trying to say, oh, it's got to work on this thing. I can't do that. I would approach that left turn and say, yo, I'm turning right, and I don't know, I'll head in the other direction and make a Michigan left or whatever, is available down the road. I mean, this is like crazy stuff. What are you trying to do? I mean, this is just wrong. And so, one could, and I'm asking if you take into account when you do your optimization function for the shortest path, not shortest, but the objective function in the path equation, take those things into account. I mean, I think it shouldn't even take you to those if it finds a way that's not too circuitous. I mean, why battle that in some sense? Now, you're intervening here and asking the person to go ahead and do it, and so therefore whatever. But it just seems to me that avoid those things. Have you approached it that way at all, or not, or?
So the route will actually get calculated by the in-car navigation system.
Right.
There is information that we will make available to that in-vehicle route planning system.
Yeah.
To optimize availability. Yeah. So that the vehicle, you're taking it on a route where it will be engaged more than disengaged. However, we don't plan to have the type of hook that you're talking about where we're just saying, hey, avoid these, because we feel like, to your point, we are going to use that light bar from Ultra Cruise so that if there is an unprotected turn or another maneuver that we don't think we're capable of doing, long before that maneuver comes, we have a new color that we're adding to the light bar, a yellow color, that we call it a non-urgent escalation, where the driver comes in, we'd ask the driver to do that maneuver, and then as soon as you're done with that maneuver, we'll auto resume. So that's our way of managing that. And in a way, try to reduce the software complexity for what we hand back and forth between the navigation.
Yeah, I encourage you to do that. At one point in my life, I pioneered turn-by-turn navigation and so on. I know what's in the databases. I know what you can put in there. I know what you can put in the objective function. I'm suggesting, seriously, look at that, because you have the opportunity here. Okay, and certainly, since you have the route ahead, you know this is coming. And in some sense, you probably have to beat the person over the head. Not that you should beat the person over the head, because this is, I mean, what are we doing here? Anyway, that's just, I think if just throwing that out there. The second thing is, this is a personal thing. I have 3 personal things, at least 3 personal things. Second thing is that why is it hands off that's important, not feet off? I think, at least for me personally, the best thing about this stuff is my feet are off those pedals. In my own mind, one data point in the world, single data point in the world, the toughest thing I have to do is not really stay in the lane, although that is challenging. Keeping my speed and my separation from the vehicle ahead of me the way that I would want it to be. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's a feed-off thing. Now, I know that in the whole evolution of these things, somebody came up with hands-off, and that's the feature. What's your thought on that? Or am I just a screwy person, one-off, whatever on this? I love me not manipulating my feet.
Well, and so we do build off of what is, commonly termed adaptive cruise control.
Yes.
But the situation that we're going to be in with our route following feature is, we'll be presented with the first car at a stoplight, right? And being able to, when that stoplight changes color, being able to accelerate as that first vehicle. Mm-hmm. And so we've spent a lot of time working on, well, what is the proper way in those scenarios that we accelerate as the lead vehicle, right? We know how to accelerate following a vehicle, and we've got that baked into adaptive cruise control. But we've spent a lot of time working on how are we going to accelerate as the lead vehicle from a stop sign or a stop light, so that we're not annoying all the vehicles behind us because we're accelerating too slowly, and we're not accelerating too quickly to the speed limit to make the driver uncomfortable. So there is a lot of work going there, but you are right. The hands-off.
That's a feet-off feature. That is focused on your feet, not your hands. Right. And I would just suggest, I don't know, maybe you talk to your marketing folks or something. To me, it's that's the feet off ability. I don't have to sit there and mess around with that gas pedal and so on to do that, or the brake pedal, or jerk a dude to do all that stuff. But I'm an old. What can I? I'm still looking for the clutch. But never mind. we took care of the clutch. Okay, but anyway, that's.
We are fully aware of what you bring up.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you are. I'm just, throwing this out to make this somewhat interesting or whatever. Not that the third one is a real pet peeve of mine. Okay, so unfortunately, I didn't buy a CT6. Okay, I tried to, but whatever. I don't have, but I have a competitor. And what I call intelligent cruise control, as opposed to stupid cruise control. What bugs me about mine, even though I think it works reasonably well, okay, is that if I'm in intelligent cruise control, which is what I call it, as opposed to stupid cruise control, which is the difference is that the intelligent cruise control operates on the throttle and the brake. Whereas the stupid cruise control just operated on the throttle. You didn't have opportunity to do brake except for aerodynamic braking or whatever. There was no control of that. Okay. If I have the whole thing set up and I'm, whatever, and I tap the brakes, it turns it off. If I'm in Super Cruise and I have it on and I tap the brake, does it turn it off? I think so.
Yes,
in Ultra Cruise, I ask the same question. I have it on, whatever. It's green, it says I'm good, but for who knows what, I tap the brakes. Does it turn the system off?
Yeah, so we take a brake pedal input as intention that you want to take over control of the vehicle. So
why?
If you tap that brake
pedal,
why?
Well, why does it mean that?
It's a situation where, the driver in the seat, right, has taken an action that isn't what we would expect to be taken. So we respond to that as if that's an indication that, hey, I want to take control. Okay. So we're going to disengage and ask them to come back and bring their hands back on. It's a strategy.
What if I touch the gas pedal?
If you touch the gas pedal,
I took an action. You didn't expect.
Or the accelerator in this instance.
Whatever. I'm sorry. I'm old school. What can I tell you? Whatever that pedal is. The one on the right.
We do allow in both Super Cruise and Ultra Cruise, right? If you have a accelerator pedal override, meaning I
understand what you mean by override. Yes,
right? We allow that to happen without disengaging because we consider these two differences from a safety perspective. One, I just want to go a little faster. Maybe I want to accelerate without changing my set speed, or maybe I want to accelerate because I want to take manual control and go around. Versus, we consider a brake pedal request kind of an indication that they're not comfortable with something, and we feel like we need to disengage. So we kind of consider that a safety input.
Now, Alan, let me ask you,
wait. I just think
along
that
these
is
lines,
so wrong.
I'm just wondering, what would you propose as a way,
No, I
Alan,
just think it's so wrong because
what would be a good alternative?
To me, it's the same thing. Okay, it's the exact same thing. Is that one in the gas? I want to override the braking and go a little bit faster in case, and therefore I'm taking control of that, and it's fine for you to let me do that. In the braking, I want to override the gas. And if I should take my foot off, it doesn't come back on, and it drives me nuts.
What would be a good alternative, Alan, for telling the vehicle that I want to take control?
To me, well, I don't know. It doesn't. The same thing. I can override. I can override the steering, and I hope the steering still works. I can override the gas, and the throttle still works after I'm done with my override. On the brake, it says, oh no, this one's different. It's not all on you. And what bothers me about that personally is that I may not have hit the brake hard enough. And if I didn't hit the brake hard enough and the system thinks that I should be slowing some more, it doesn't cut in until the automated emergency braking system comes in at, who knows what, 1.6 seconds to collision, and who knows what breaks loose. And to me, I've said this to NHTSA, I've said this to folks and so whatever. I think, and we can cut it out if you don't want to let me say what I think. It's a leftover from stupid cruise control. Because in stupid cruise control, there was only one thing that was being controlled, and that was the throttle. And certainly, if I tap the brake, I'm saying, hey, please turn off the throttle function, okay? Because I want to slow down. Just like if I tap the gas, it says turn off the brake function. I want to go faster. Don't keep me from doing that. So, and then as soon as I relieve it, get back to where in the heck you think I should be.
So one of the things that we have engineered into Ultra Cruise is an auto re-engage, so that if for whatever reason you've had to come in and take control, or we've disengaged, once you've established control and once all the conditions are good again and you're still on your route plan, we'll automatically re-engage. So you won't have to go find another button to press to re-engage once this has happened. So it's a bit of a balance. It's not exactly addressing your issue, but it's a bit of a partial solution.
So I personally, okay, for whatever it means, I think that is great. Look, I mean, the way I look at these systems is they're there to help me. They're comfort and convenience to help me. Every once in a while, I have a different view. I have a different view on a lot of things, okay? Let me have that view. And then as soon as I'm done with that view, please get back to doing it. Otherwise, there's a turn off button someplace, okay? I don't know where it is. I'm sure it's convenient. But because you can imagine in these intelligent cruise controls, especially in the situation in which you're driving on Route 1 here with traffic light every 2 feet, you're who knows what, going who knows what over the speed limit, and then all of a sudden, the traffic stopped at a whatever, and and I don't tend to wait for it. I tap the brake and maybe I slow down early because I really want to be safe. But my goodness, if I don't do that enough and it thinks I'm not slowing down enough, then it won't go in and help me anymore. Even though I've said don't use the gas, I certainly don't want to speed into that, and and I think, the discussions I've had with others, I mean, I think this is a holdover from stupid cruise control, in which there was only, the tapping the brake, of course, turn off the accelerator. How do you turn off the accelerator? There's only one function, turn the whole thing off. Jason, if you could ask some other people, whatever. But I've had discussions with people at NHTSA, and not that I have many discussions with people at NHTSA and so on. It just seemed. The other thing, if I may ask you, with respect to this system is separate from automated emergency braking, correct? Or how are those two systems integrated or talk to each other?
Yeah. All of our, I'll call it active safety features, automatic emergency braking is one of them. We have them in vehicles today. Right. And we have a software set that does that. So we are essentially carrying that sensor and that software set over, and the Ultra Cruise software is sort of separate. So we're essentially using what we know today with these features, and eventually over time we'll merge those two together. But at least when we start, we're keeping that active safety content separate.
Okay. Well, I guess, for whatever it's worth, I of course think those features should be integrated. Because you sort of go with one, your feet off, you're like happy camper, going, doing whatever, and then that's at one end of the spectrum over here, and at the other end of the spectrum is, oh my goodness, something just happened, for which whatever the cutoff is, I don't know what you use or what other people use, 1.6 seconds time to collision, or whatever, that thing just like goes nuts. It tightens the seat belt, it locks doors, it brings something so that my legs don't get chopped off by the engine coming through the whatever, and all the other stuff that goes on, and who knows what goes on in there. Okay,
we agree with you. We agree with you.
No. I mean, which thank you for doing that. Please, and it should absolutely do that. But that's over here on this other end of the spectrum. And it seems to me that any efforts that any of you can make to bring those two things together, because at some point there's this no person land in between where, in fact, we wouldn't have to. And you've got to be careful that you're not doing that. I had it under control. There's a whole, driver experience thing that goes on in there, which is totally non-trivial. Okay.
Right. Those two features are highly integrated because they do have to work together. Because if you're in a hands-free situation, yet the active safety system detects that we've got to go into an emergency braking event, that gets communicated back to us because we've got to bring the driver in absolutely as fast as possible. Yeah, absolutely. Escalation. So they are highly integrated between the two, and we would like to merge those over time into one single, unified software stack to be able to do that. But at least we're integrating them together.
Yeah. Anyway,
well, let me throw in one more thing, because sure. I know Jason has to run.
Okay.
Not long ago, Jason.
No, we want to keep them.
We do. Missy Cummings, I'm sure you've seen the story, now a professor at George Mason University, had been a safety advisor to NHTSA, joined us on the podcast here. She had made some headlines and sent a document to her colleagues at NHTSA showing that when people using advanced driver assistance systems die or are injured in a car crash, they are more likely to have been speeding than people driving cars on their own. And she says automakers and regulators should restrict when and how the technology is used. Just like to get your thoughts on this, and, should the vehicles themselves be saying, no, you can't behave that way?
That's the tough one, Jason. Ask you the tough question. That is a quagmire. Go, Jason.
Well, Missy made some pretty big headlines with that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I don't think we've actually seen the study. I don't know if that study was ever officially published. So it's kind of hard for me to comment on something that I haven't been able to wrap my head around in terms of the actual research rather than just the comments. I am aware of the comments, but I really can't comment without seeing the real research behind it.
Yeah, and Jason, I think that's a tough question because of course then there's the issue to the extent that you control and the behavior of the drivers, somebody you sold a product to, and then telling them how to behave and so on, and if somehow NHTSA or somebody said that you have to put you can't go over the speed limit when you're using this, then I don't know, that just opens up so many cans of worms that
so I will say this: Ultra Cruise will follow the speed limit unless the driver has selected an offset either above or below the speed limit. But to start, we will follow the posted speed limit.
Well, you can put an offset on there as opposed to set the number.
You can put an offset either above or below the posted speed limit. But what will come out the door is the feature will follow the speed limit.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great because that's sort of my mentality when I drive. I always go under this. Never. I got to protect myself, Jason. I might be an academic and clueless, but whatever. To me, I think it's really the system that I happen to have doesn't have that. You have to set the number or whatever, and the speed changes. And then it turns out that even though I set a number, then it changes the speed limit when
Well, what you're going to want, Alan, is coming out next year. It's the Cadillac Celestiq, which is this is first going to be available.
I know,
and eventually migrating, I guess, Jason, to other vehicles in the line.
We're not ready to talk about what other vehicles at this point in time, but we do intend to put this across other vehicles.
Jason, for whatever it's worth, I thought maybe the worst thing that GM did with Super Cruise was just make it available on the CT6 in the beginning. And in the beginning, it was not easy to find. Experience from a consumer, okay? You have other consumer. Look, I think these are wonderful systems that really help.
We've gained a lot of traction. We've got about 22 models that we're getting Super Cruise on, and we're continuing to grow it. And Ultra Cruise is this natural evolution.
And now it's gone. And now it's
kind of
gone.
All in at this point.
And I know that this thing requires LiDAR and so on.
So, Jason, congratulations to you and your team there on all of the great innovations. We're looking forward to it and the work that you're doing, and we really appreciate you spending time with us.
Thank you. It was great talking to both of you today.
And thank you very much, Jason. Really appreciate it because you're there and you're doing it, and that's the important thing. And thank you for coming on with us.
My pleasure.
We have another headline or two, Alan, to get to. Reuters reports that GM's robotaxi unit Cruise is focused on cutting costs this year. The COO told a technology conference that they'll continue to look at hardware, software in terms of costs and what's on the vehicle and drive costs out as they move forward. I guess no big surprise here.
Well, somewhat of a surprise. The way you get to reduce costs is by scale, is by more, is by, really going out there and doing deployments. If things are onesie-twosie, things are expensive. They're handmade. There's no volume, discount. Okay, and the way to make this affordable is to scale it, and you scale it by having more things out there and provide more rides. The capital cost of these things is not that much of an issue. If you can then spread the capital costs over a bunch of rides. Productivity levels of these vehicles have to be something that begin to approach 100-person trips a day type of thing. But if you do 100-person trips a day times, 300 days a year, you really don't have to collect all that much from each one to have a good amount of money in your pocket to buy vehicles that have
so
the sensors.
What you're saying is they
whatever.
should be focusing on scaling this up rather than necessarily
reducing the cost of components
cost
of whatever. I mean, sure, you always do that, but that's not the. I mean, if they want to make a headline says, "Hey, we're going to go out there, and the vehicles we're going to put out there, we're going to put it in places where they actually can be productive, and they have repeat users, and they have customers." And the cost of customer acquisition is spread out over many trips that entity is going to take. Not onesie, twosie, here somebody every once in a while going to an airport. I mean, to get 100-person trips a day, and each of those persons is taking you once every, I don't know, blue moon, you're going to die of customer acquisition costs. So why don't you focus this thing on a market where, in fact, you are absolutely number one or close to number one, and people's choice as to how they're going to get there. So you get a repeat customer. And that repeat customer comes back and back to you. You've had to acquire him or her once. I mean, that's the way other businesses scale, isn't it? It's the way McDonald's scaled. How many hamburgers did they have to sell to each person? They didn't sell one hamburger to somebody, once every 3 months. I don't know. What do I know about business? My degrees are in aerospace engineering. I'm a techno nerd.
Alan, the Reuters is also reporting that NHTSA is opening a probe into the self-certification of the test procedures at Zoox. A general counsel at Zoox says in a statement that the company's self-certification tests have met or exceeded applicable performance requirements, and he adds they are working closely with NHTSA on the questions that they have there.
I mean, I applaud them for self-certification. I mean, I think U.S. is all about self-certification. And why the self-certification has to have a steering wheel and a rear view mirror. I mean, does it need a saddle? And a side saddle for women? I mean, what? We've commented about NHTSA, okay, with respect to the GM vehicle and them, whatever. Not suggesting they're dragging their feet. But my goodness, look, these folks are trying to provide mobility. And good mobility. At least that's what they're trying to do. And NHTSA, yes, it has a responsibility for safety. They also have a responsibility for providing good mobility. Because if they don't have both, then, let's get some more saddles. A couple buggy whips, too. Look, I know it's harsh, and I don't mean that. I know they have a tough job. But come on, man.
We don't really know exactly what this means in terms of a roadblock or anything along those lines.
I don't know if it's look, the objective here, the real objective to me of the driverless is not to make road mobility perfectly safe. That might be an aspiration. It's something that we'll asymptotically get to. But what it does, which we have not been able to do, for the last, 100 years is to be able to provide mobility affordably without having to pay for the driver unless we pay and do it ourselves. Or we have Catherine Freund out there trying to get volunteers, and she's doing a fantastic job. Kudos to her. But, if we have to, and we should pay a person a living wage, at least a living wage, to wait around for us and drive us. Unfortunately, in essentially all situations, that is very expensive. And to me, right now, the only way to do that is either have Catherine Freud find volunteers to do that for all of us. It's asking a lot of the volunteers. Or let this thing do it. Okay? And darn it, NHTSA, get on board.
Another quick headline, Alan. And that has to do with Embark, autonomous trucking startup. Embark Trucks laying off most employees, and the headline says winding down operations.
Hey, you think this is tough, doing it to move people around a community, maybe at low speed, just so that they maybe can get to a grocery store or to a synagogue or to a revival or to shoot hoops in a community on just neighborhood streets? Just think how tough it is to do it on the New Jersey Turnpike or even Interstate 80, almost in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, for stretches, it's a piece of cake. But in other places, because if you're going to do it, you got to do it all the way from origin to destination. And there's a number of folks out there trying to do that one. And how many people have tried that and gone out of it, starting with Otto and Starsky and whatever. And I just hope Aurora succeeds. It seems like, what didn't Waymo sort of indicate that maybe they were putting the truck on back burner? I don't know. I don't know if that was a rumor, fake news, or whatever. Trucking business is tough. Why? Because you're trying to replace an entity that I think if you look at the value proposition of moving what it is that you're moving behind that truck is going to be a high valued goods. Otherwise it'd be on the choo-choos. So it's on trucks. It's high valued. It probably deserves some human oversight, care, and feeding during that process. And then that person also drives. And if you look at the cost of the driver in doing that, yes, it is an expense. But you look at putting on the hardware, the software, the responsibility that the system now needs to have. And, the professional truck driver is a pretty responsible entity, man and woman. And I don't think that's a trivial undertaking or a trivial business. And I guess Embark, because they found out.
Right. Difficult. Well, before we go, we want to mention you brought up Catherine Freund. People can find more information about the great work that she does providing mobility at itnamerica.org. And we want to thank Jason Ditman from General Motors for joining us today for a terrific discussion about Ultra Cruise and what they've been able to accomplish there and where it's going. Very interesting.
Yeah, no, it's good, and applauds really to GM. We asked some tough questions. They could, it also can be better. Okay, but it is darn good. Again, the green bar on the steering wheel, I guess they have a patent on that. I hope they may, let others take advantage of that, put it out there, but who knows? That's a business decision. Don't want to suggest that. And the eye tracker, of course, same thing. They probably have a ton of patents on that deserve to get, IP revenue flow associated for that. But boy, that kind of thing. And then, one of the things that we didn't deal with that is that I hope they don't find themselves in trouble with respect to, the 95% can take you 95% from, origin to destination. The driverless piece, the 100% piece is really tough, because you then have to accept the responsibility from the watering hole to my bedroom, almost, okay, to do that. And unfortunately, 95% doesn't do it. 98% doesn't do it. And right. So, that's what makes it so enormously difficult. And you have to watch where you're allowing that. And that's why the operational design domain is so important. I think they have the right oversight on everything. And I think it'll, they're going about it the right way. So applauds. But 95% is, there. Unfortunately, some people may have it in their mind to say 95% is equivalent to 100%, and it's not. And I know they have plenty of safeguards on there. They'll turn it off and so on and so forth. And anyway.
I don't like to drive through traffic circles or roundabouts either, so it's not a surprise.
Yeah, no, it's tough. I don't know that I would trust one. Or, I mean, if it's doing it and I don't have a chance to intervene, then absolutely. But the best, to me, one of the things I found out, in, as I say, pioneering turn-by-turn navigation is that there is a best path. Okay, however you define the objective function. But it turns out there are usually a bunch of different paths that aren't too different from the best. And in fact, when you start taking your best and sort of modifying by some of those things, because you can modify, depends what you define as best. Probably it should be, you should absolutely avoid roundabouts. You should absolutely avoid unprotected left turns. And these things with, 3 lanes going this way, whatever, the truck that Joshua Brown crashed into, the first sort of Tesla crash, that thing was making an unprotected left turn in one of these things. Probably got stuck in the middle of the road. Poor Joshua. The heck's that? It's just very difficult on everybody. So, avoid those things. Actually, they probably should be prohibited. Anyway, never mind.
Tough stuff.
Stuff. This is tough stuff.
We want to thank CARTS, the Corporation for Automated Road Transportation Safety, for helping to make this podcast possible. CARTS is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to safe and high-quality mobility for all. You can find us at smartdrivingcar.com, also on Anchor FM, Spotify, TuneIn, Apple, Google, Amazon, wherever you turn to for podcasts. Smart speakers can play us too. You can find my tech reports at textination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alan Kornhauser. Thanks for listening or watching. Please continue to stay safe.
Thank you, everybody. Oh, by the way, on Thursday, I'm on my way to Boca Chica.
An exciting trip ahead. You're going to see a rocket, Alan?
I'm sure I won't see it fire, but I'm going to go gaze on a rocket with every other techno nerd in the world, I guess. Whatever. It should be Great fun. Anyway, looking forward to it.